Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. So in this video I am just going to go through all of the Blu-rays that I have picked up for January 2024, and there's also a couple from December 2023. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So just a few Blu-rays to start off with first, and the first one we have here is Edge of Darkness, starring Mel Gibson. Yeah, I remember this film coming out. I think it came out back in 2010, and it was kind of seen as like Mel Gibson's long-awaited return to acting, because I think he'd been away from acting for almost a decade, just, you know, working as a director, basically. But yeah, I'd never seen this before, and I saw it very cheap and decided to give it a go. And yeah, it was okay. It's basically about Mel Gibson. He plays this this cop who is seeking revenge for the death of his daughter, and it kind of just goes from there. For me, it starts off really well, but the more it went on, it got a bit too political and a bit too conspiracy heavy for me. So in the end, I was a little bit disappointed by it, but it's not a bad little thriller. Mel Gibson gives a pretty good performance. It's quite brutal in places. But yeah, that's basically it. So yeah, that is Edge of Darkness. Next up, we have a triple pack Blu-ray, and I picked this up mainly for the first two movies, but we have Scary Movie 1, 2, and 3 on Blu-ray. Yeah, I grew up with the first two Scary Movie films. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old when they first came out, so I was kind of the right age to watch them. Very, very silly movies. They're not going to be for everyone. The humour definitely isn't going to be for everyone, but I've always had a big soft spot for the first two films. And yeah, I didn't actually realise, but I didn't actually own these movies. I think the last time I had them was back when they were on VHS. So yeah, I had to pick them up on Blu-ray. It also comes with the third movie, which in my opinion is not as good. It's different directors behind it. The humour feels very, very different. But yeah, I do have a soft spot for those first two movies. So yeah, that's it. Scary Movie 1, 2, and 3 on Blu-ray. This next one that we have here was a blind buy. It was actually Keith over at Euphoria Pictures who was talking about this film. I think he was on a live stream with Scott the Movie Critic, Andy from Forgotten World of Movies, and Nige, Rock God 2004. And I think it was someone in the comments who mentioned this film, and then Keith mentioned that he'd seen it, and he really sung his praises about it, and he really sold me on it, so I decided to pick it up. And it's a movie called Triangle. So this is a British horror movie, although saying that, I think it was filmed in Australia, and I think the cast is mostly Australian. And yeah, this was a real good psychological thriller about this group of people who they set sail on this yacht, and they get caught in a storm, and then after they get through the storm, they come across this this ocean liner. They go aboard the ocean liner and find that it's completely deserted. There's no one there. And it kind of takes a very mysterious turn from there. I can't really say too much more about it without really going into the specifics and spoiling the film, but really intriguing psychological thriller. Goes in some interesting directions and has some good twists and pretty cool ending. So yeah, I really liked it. So yeah, that is Triangle. Next up, we have Wind Talkers, starring Nicolas Cage and directed by John Woo. And yeah, I remember seeing this film back when it came out. I think it was about 2002, 2003, and I really liked it at the time, but I don't think it did very well at the box office, and it got pretty poor reviews. But I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this movie, and yeah, I fancied giving it another go, so I picked this up very cheap from, I think it was from CEX. Basically a World War II film, starring Nicolas Cage. It's got some good production values, great action, good performance from Nicolas Cage, and, you know, John Woo, he's always very dependable for me. And yeah, I just think it's a very underrated movie, and I don't think it really deserves the hate that it gets. But yeah, that is Wind Talkers. Next up, we have one that I picked up back in December. This was, at the time, a new release from 88 Films, and it is The Inspector Wears Skirts. So yeah, this is a Hong Kong action comedy movie, released by 88 Films, of course. And I had high hopes for this film because I think Jackie Chan produced this one, so I was expecting it to be kind of like that sort of signature Jackie Chan action kind of style. I was expecting this movie to be kind of like Police Story, but to me, it felt more like Police Academy. It was very light on action, and it seemed to be more of a comedy film. It's got Cynthia Rothrock in the movie, but she's really not in that much of it. I mean, she shows up in the opening sequence, and then she kind of appears later towards the end of the film, but she probably has about 10 minutes of screen time, if that. So I was a little bit disappointed in this movie, but really nice release from 88 Films. Love the artwork. You get like a booklet and a poster and all that good stuff. But yeah, I was a little bit underwhelmed in the movie, but that is The Inspector Wears Skirts. Right, so the rest of the pickups now are all 4K. And the first one we have to show is Avatar: The Way of the Water. So typical of me, as soon as I bought this, I think a few days later, they announced that they were releasing a collector's edition version of this film, I think with a new Dolby Vision scan of the movie. So I might be tempted to pick that up, but we'll see. But yeah, the film itself, I saw it in the cinema and I enjoyed it. I had a good time with this movie. I think whenever James Cameron directs a movie, he always gives 110%. I know he doesn't really release that many movies these days. He seems to take quite a while to release them, but whenever he does, he always gives it his all, and I really enjoyed this film. I know the Avatar films aren't for everyone. They seem to be films that people like to kind of criticize, and you know, I can understand that. They're certainly not James Cameron's best films, but I still enjoyed this one. Beautiful looking movie. It's maybe a little bit too long. I can definitely agree with that. But I think the last act, there's some absolutely fantastic action sequences. And yeah, I really enjoyed it in the cinema. And I'm hoping it will still hold up on a rewatch when I watch it at home. But yeah, that is Avatar: The Way of the Water. Next up, we have Event Horizon. Yeah, this is the classic 90s sci-fi cult horror movie. Yeah, and I was surprised that I didn't own this one. I think for the longest time I've just had a digital copy, and I decided I wanted to pick it up on 4K because I fancied giving it a rewatch. Yeah, it's basically about this crew who go into space looking for the ship called the Event Horizon, which is lost in space. And when they do find it, they realize that there's something evil lurking aboard. Yeah, I've always had a soft spot for this movie. I know it's not perfect. It definitely starts off better than the way it ends. I think it goes a little bit too far in the last act, but it's got some great visuals in it, some creepy moments. It's got a good, solid cast of characters. And yeah, I've always enjoyed it. It's a shame we're probably never going to see that full uncut version of the movie, but you know, it's still a good watch nonetheless. So yeah, that is Event Horizon. Next up, we have my first ever Vinegar Syndrome pickup, and it is the movie Freeway, starring Kiefer Sutherland and Reese Witherspoon. Yeah, this is a fantastic thriller / black comedy. Reese Witherspoon plays this girl who decides to get away from her abusive home life, and she ends up hitching a ride with Kiefer Sutherland, and his character seems very normal at first, but then she eventually realizes that he's actually a very dangerous, wanted killer. But yeah, I remember seeing this movie when I was about 18. I remember my dad singing his praises about it and telling me to watch it, and yeah, at the time I absolutely loved it. But this was the first time I'd rewatched it since then, and yeah, it still holds up. Reese Witherspoon has never been better, in my opinion. She is absolutely fantastic in this film. She's very funny in places, and Kiefer Sutherland makes a great villain. But yeah, really nice release from Vinegar Syndrome, and really nice 4K transfer as well. But yeah, fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. That is Freeway. Next up, I have a few films to show you in one go. These form part of a massive sci-fi franchise, probably the most popular sci-fi franchise of all time. But we have Star Trek, the motion picture, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, and Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Yeah, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I love all the TV shows, really enjoy the films, and I fancied giving them a rewatch, and I'd heard good things about the 4K transfers, so I decided to yeah, just picked them up. And yeah, I thought I'd just start with the first 4 movies. Obviously, you've got the first one, but then 2, 3, and 4 kind of form like this little trilogy. So yeah, I decided to just go with the first 4 for now, but I will pick up the rest of them at some point. The first film, I know it's not to everyone's tastes. It is a bit slow. I can definitely agree with that, but I still really like it. Wrath of Khan is, I think it's considered to be the favourite amongst a lot of people, and yeah, it's a great sort of sci-fi adventure. Search for Spock, I think, is really underrated. It's a bit flawed in places, a bit of a strange movie, but I still really like it. And then The Voyage Home is a bit of a comfort movie for me. I like how it's a bit more lighthearted. I like the fish out of water story, and yeah, I just really enjoy watching them all. But yeah, that is the first 4 Star Trek movies on 4K. So this next one was, at the time, a new release. I picked this up back in December. James Cameron again, and it is Titanic on 4K. Yeah, I don't need to say too much about the movie. I think we all know the story of Titanic. We all know the sort of the impact it's had on pop culture. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old when this film came out, and even at that age, this movie absolutely captivated me. And to this day, I still really, really like it. Just a great story, and you know the second half in particular, when we actually get to the disaster itself, it's just, you know, fantastic to watch. And the 4K transfer is great. I was really impressed with how this looked on 4K. I think the previous Blu-ray, you know, to my eyes, always looked really good, and I always kind of wondered how they could better that on 4K. But they've definitely done a really good job, and yeah, it looked fantastic. So if you're a fan of the movie, I would definitely recommend picking it up on 4K. But yeah, that is Titanic. Next up, we have a new release from Criterion. Not a label I tend to buy from that much. I think, personally for me, I find a lot of their releases a bit expensive, and I could even argue that this one was maybe a little bit overpriced, but I still had to get this one because I love this movie, and it is Thelma and Louise. So this is the sort of the 4K digipack version of the film. But yeah, this is a fantastic movie. Susan Sarandon, Gina Davis play Thelma and Louise, who go on this road trip, and then they basically have to go on the run, become fugitives because of a murder. And yeah, it's just a fantastic film. Ridley Scott, and I would say after Alien and Blade Runner, this is probably my favourite Ridley Scott film. That's how high I think of this movie. Just a great story, great performances from the lead actresses, and great supporting cast as well. You've got Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen, Brad Pitt in there. Yeah, just a fantastic cast, great story, and just a very riveting movie. Yeah, one of my favourites from Ridley Scott. So yeah, that is Thelma and Louise. Next up, we have one which I think came out a few years ago, and I think this particular version of it might be out of print, but I managed to get it for a pretty decent price on eBay. But we have The Untouchables, and this is in the sort of the steelbook version, where you get a poster and some art cards and sort of a nice hard box. But yeah, this is a classic gangster movie directed by Brian De Palma. Great cast: Kevin Costner, Sean Connery, Andy Garcia, Robert De Niro, of course, and yeah, it's just about the story of the untouchable police force who are trying to do whatever they can to bring down Al Capone. And yeah, it's just a fantastic film. It's one that it took a while to grow on me. I remember the first time I watched it, I never really cared for it, but every time I rewatch this film, it just gets better and better for me. Just love the story. I love the cast, the music, Ennio Morricone, Brian De Palma's direction. Yeah, it just gets a lot right, and yeah, I really enjoy it, and it looks really good on 4K. So yeah, that is The Untouchables. And then my last pickup for January is one that actually only just arrived today being the 6th of February, but I thought I'd show it off in this video anyway because it technically did come out in January. And I was expecting it to arrive in January. It's my first ever Arrow US release, and it is the Conan Chronicles. So this is the 4K box set with Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And yeah, when Arrow announced this, I knew I had to get it. Even though it was only a US release, I knew I had to get it. The first film in particular, Conan the Barbarian, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite Schwarzenegger films, and I feel like it's a film that kind of gets forgotten about when you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think when most people think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, they think of The Terminator, Commando, Predator, True Lies, you know, all those great movies, but I feel like Conan the Barbarian always kind of gets forgotten about, and I think it's an important movie in Arnie's career. I think, you know, if he hadn't have done this movie, he probably wouldn't have had the film career that he did have. So yeah, that's how highly I think of the film. And I think it's a great movie as well, just a great revenge film, sword and sorcery epic. And yeah, it's just a fantastic watch. The other film, Conan the Destroyer, it's not quite as good. It's a bit more lighthearted. It maybe ups the fantasy elements and the magic, the sorcery. It kind of ups that element a lot more. And yeah, it's definitely a more kid-friendly movie, but it's still really fun. But yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to Conan the Barbarian. But yeah, it's just a lovely set from Arrow. Yeah, like I said, you get the two films, get a nice big booklet and some posters and art cards. But yeah, can't wait to check these films out on 4K. But yeah, that is the Conan Chronicles. So there you go, guys. Those are all of my pickups for January 2024. Really hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen any of these movies. Have you picked up any of these particular releases? I would love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you all very soon on the next one. So take care, guys.